All right.
Yes, I'm ready.
So first of all, I have to give a little backstory how we met because it's one of my favorite ways to meet people because it usually doesn't happen the way we met. We were both out randomly in Hollywood one night and we made friends just being out and about. And turns out you literally live the street next to me. And that was over a year ago now. And since then, we've just been instant friends. And you're one of those people that the second you meet them, you just feel like you've known them for longer than you have. And you've been such like a comfort for me, like even just going to your house and watching movies is just so cozy and you're just like a instantly trustworthy person. So thank you for that energy in my life. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And boy, am I glad I went to that stupid rooftop club that night. I did not want to go. I was not in the mood to go at all. And I was actually in a grumpy mood with my friends. Then I met you and I was in a good mood.
Yeah, that turned out to be such an unexpected but really fun night. And all right, let's dive in. So you are a production concierge. So tell us what that means and tell us how a job like that is affected with COVID.
Yeah, so it's kind of an unusual job title and it warrants a little bit of explaining, but basically I work for a small production company. We film promos and commercials for TV shows. We do the promos for The Bachelor every year. I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast watches The Bachelor. So, yeah, we do promos for big TV networks. And basically my job at the company I'm in charge of all things client relations, crew relations. My job is just to make everybody happy on set. I'm in charge of just organizing all kinds of things in terms of visual aesthetics on set. My boss likes certain special candles and certain special things on set, and I take care of that. I make sure everybody's happy. I schmooze the clients, that kind of stuff.
Paying attention to detail.
It's kind of an unusual job position. Yes, a lot of paying attention to detail. I'm making sure things look really, really awesome and making sure everyone's happy. It's kind of like PR, client relations type job within a production company. It's kind of unusual because most production companies are like, let's just make it. We don't care about what things look like. But my job is like, the food needs to be amazing. The scent needs to be amazing. Like all the little details that make a more elevated experience when you're filming a commercial.
Knowing you outside of work, that makes a lot of sense because that is very much your personality, where in your personal life, you love a display. You do really take pride in the way you put things together, which is one of my favorite things about you. Your home is always so comforting because of that meticulous little part of the personality that you have that makes everything so cohesive together and beautiful. And it's so clear that you think these things out. But with COVID hitting, I know your job took a pause for a little bit where you couldn't work before we had all these testing. So what was it like for you to just stay sane when you went from 100 to really 0 in 2 seconds?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I think I missed that part of the question. But basically, in March, when everything shut down and all filming was stopped. So I didn't really have much to do from March to about June. And it was rough because, like you said, I was going 100% before, working 18-hour days, 7 days a week, weekends, everything, which I love. I love to work. So going from that to nothing was rough, really rough, especially me being a very social person. And like you said, I love parties. I love entertaining. I love having people over and doing a whole thing and a cheese spread. And that was all gone. And so it was very weird time mentally and emotionally. But in terms of my job, we just kept afloat. I kind of just did little things here and there to assist my boss. I'm also her executive assistant as well. And we just sort of stayed afloat. And then when things opened back up in June, we hit the ground running again with working. But this time it was very different. Constant testing twice a week, masks, face shields, pods on set, no more lunch buffets. It was like, it's a completely different world now. Yeah.
So what was it like in that time in between? I know it was hard for you, but one thing again that I love about you as someone who does like to look inwards, and you're very into astrology and the moons and the meaning behind things. So what did you gain in that moment of stillness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I at first resisted it and I was like, I hate this. I hate being stuck at home. I hate having nothing to do. But then I really leaned into it because I knew I wouldn't have this time ever again. Because I knew as soon as things picked back up, I'd go back to being the busy, busy, busy me that I always am. So I actually, me and my roommate at the time decided to drive to Washington. Her dad has a house there in Portland, Oregon, Washington border. And I just took a month of like nature, hiking, journaling, meditating, reading my astrology, really looking inward, really reflecting, really being quiet, and really taking the time to do all the things that I usually push under the rug, because to me, I'm like, meditating is a waste of time. It's like 5 minutes that I need to do something else, or doing yoga is too slow. Like I'm an Aries. I'm very energetic, but I like did all those things. And I know it sounds so cliche in LA, but
It works.
they worked. And I like gained so much perspective and did so much self-work. I also did virtual therapy once a week, which was amazing. And I just really took the time for me, which I liked.
I love that. Well, that's the thing. I do feel like on the surface, these things do sound very LA, very fringe, very, topical to what everyone is doing now. But the overlying message of all of these things really is just to slow down. So, whatever way that looks like for you, it's a matter of just stopping ourselves for 2 seconds just to even check in with how we're feeling. Sometimes we're moving so quick that we don't even know how we feel because we're just focused on the next thing we have to do. So I've said this before, but I think the fact that a lot of people probably would not have stopped unless 2020 forced them, I really do think that there has to be a silver lining in what we can learn from this time that we never planned for. And I'm personally learning, they always say that happiness means you're not attached to the outcome. But for us, people that love to plan, essentially you're planning for an outcome of success. So it's like, okay, well, how do you stay on top of things and plan without having some attachment to the way it's going to end? But I think that's the great question of life, right? To find that balance of knowing that you got to do your best, but laugh at almost like sometimes we go out of our way to make these things so perfect and it all collapses. And I think if we can separate and just laugh at like the irony of it all, we have to feel better in doing that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've told you this a million times. I'm a perfectionist. I'm OCD. I'm competitive, mixed with having a job, which literally, by the way, production is just planning. It's just event planning, but with TVs and cameras. You know what I mean? It's so having that personality, having that job, my whole life was making things look perfect, having this desired outcome, having everything go according to a plan. And then all of that was taken away. And I realized, like, no. I remember I was joking with, maybe it was you. Honestly, it might have been you. I have a journal that I started on January 1st, 2020. And I wrote all these things I was going to do this year. I was going to travel. I was going to learn how to play piano. I was going to do all these things, right? And I had all these intentions and goals. And I looked at it the other night recently and I was like, well, I didn't know back then that it would be this crazy freaking year. But I still think that like, it's okay that none of that happened. Normally I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't check things. I love my to-do lists. We were talking about planners the other day. Like I used to be obsessed with my planner.
Love a planner.
We love a planner. I still use it, but I've learned to put away the planner sometimes, or look at those journal entries and say, great, I do want to do those things eventually. It's not going to happen this year because you can't travel and do all these things, but just knowing that like nobody's been able to accomplish much is helpful for me, because like I said, I'm kind of competitive. So I tend to, especially with social media, I tend to be like, okay, well, this person like wrote a book and this person did
yeah.
What am I doing?
Comparison culture is the biggest enemy.
Oh, and I'm obsessed because I feel like I'm always trying to prove myself to myself and to others. And
It's
but
exhausting.
as of late, I just don't care because guess what? I waking up every day and getting out of bed and taking a deep breath is like the biggest accomplishment of 2020.
Reminds me to do that. Yeah, no, it's so true. And with those lessons and reflections, what have you taken back to work now that it's started up? You know what I mean? Like, how do we not lose that because life resumes again?
Yeah. So, well, one of the things that definitely I've seen a big difference is that with the film industry, anyone that works in film and TV knows how go, go, go it is and how crazy our days are. Well, now with COVID, everything has slowed down. So, for example, everyone has to get tested before each shoot. We get tested a few days before, tested the day of. But then once you get on set, it's not like free for all run around. You still have to maintain distance. You still have to wear proper protection. So things take longer and we don't get as much done. And that's okay because we're staying safe. And so that has taught me, at least in a work sense, of like, we're doing our best, we're staying safe. It's not the end of the world because at the end of the day, it's not heart, we're not performing open heart surgery. We're just filming a commercial. And it's okay if things take a little bit longer, and it can be a little bit frustrating because you can't hear because repeat that because I can't hear because you're on the mask. And sometimes it's a little bit more frustrating, but it's made people, what I've noticed, it's made people kind of laugh more and have fun with it more because it is funny. Like it's funny to be kind of yelling at each other through a mask or trying to film something and you're wearing a face shield. Like I was trying to steam something on set with a face shield.
Oh, no.
And the face shield was so foggy and the actor was laughing because I was like, this is ridiculous. I look like a robot.
Right.
And so it's brought a little bit more humility and patience that I didn't see before, because so much before was get it right, get it perfect, do 50 takes in one day. And now it's like, we're lucky if we get one good shot, So
You just reminded me, I used to hear that expression all the time when I would get so stressed. And it was like, we're not doing open heart surgery. And, all the respect in the world of the people that are doing the open heart surgeries. But that's such a simple thing to really just try and remember that, like, if you're doing the best you can, life is going to happen and you're not killing anyone and you're not having these like monumental destructive things happen if your plan doesn't go according to exactly the way you thought it would. And I think those reminders are really important. And I'm curious what you do in your daily life when you're able to leave work and kind of shut your brain off. What does Gabby do? And, of course, I know a lot of the things, but for our audience, what's something you do that really gets you in a happy space and just where you really feel like you're you and it's just time that you dedicate to you alone?
Well, something I've been doing recently, and I shared with you, every morning when I wake up, no matter how tired I am, I write down 10 things I'm grateful for. And that's how I start my day every morning. And it's such a simple act. And sometimes I don't want to do it, but it sets my day up in such a way I cannot describe to you, because I take 5 minutes or whatever it takes to write down, and I realize how much amazing stuff I have in my life, my friends, my family, my health, food in my fridge, a roof over my head. Like, and once you start writing these things you're grateful for, the rest of the day, anything bad or annoying or frustrating that happens, you can come back to that and be like the other day, my internet got shut off and I got a flat tire, and I got my period all in like an hour span. And I could have cried, but I was like, you know what? I have 2 working legs. I have like a warm sweater on. Like, I'm good. I'm good.
See, I love that you gave that example because I do think it's easier to say these things when everything is going great, right? But it's really implementing those practices when things are shitty and being like, okay, let me pull from my toolkit now because I know how to do this. But I 100% think it's a daily practice, and also giving ourselves space to realize that some days we are going to be on our period and not as sensitive and not as nice and more reactive. And it's just getting back to that place and just constantly working at it, really.
Yeah. And I was surprised because me a year ago, I would have probably screamed and cried and yelled and made a whole thing. And I found myself, as I'm waiting for the tow truck to come, I was laughing because I was like, you know what? The worst things could happen to me. You know what
Right.
I mean? Worst things have happened to me. And yeah, this daily like gratitude thing that I've been doing, it's just, I honor it so much. And I've been telling so many people about it because I feel like it's so easy in 2020 to be like, look at all the things I didn't accomplish. Look at all the things that I'm not. But it's like, you have your health and you have your friends and you have your family. That's all that really matters. You know what I mean? None of it else matters. Like truly, it doesn't.
Absolutely. And
So
you're honestly one of the kindest people I've met. You're such a caretaker and you want to always be there for everyone else. But I know we've talked personally that sometimes it can feel like at the expense of yourself. So what do you do to find the balance where I think it's great to be loving. I think it's amazing to be there for people, but what do you do to make sure that you're doing it to also help the person? Because I think tough love is also a thing where if you're there too much, then they don't know how to do things for themselves. So how do you find that balance in your relationships and, even platonic, just like choosing friends? How do you distinguish when you are feeling depleted?
that's a great question. Yeah, I give a lot. That's just who I am. I give everything to my friends. I give everything to my family. But and I used to be a little bit more tough lovey. I've kind of softened up a bit because I realized that tough love works sometimes, but not all the time. And I've learned to accept. This is what helps me. I've learned to accept that I can only control the things in my life. That's all. I cannot control the things in someone else's life, and I cannot control the things that someone does to me. So if I just focus on what on my needs and wants, and if a friend needs me, if they need me to pick them up or cook them a meal or whatever, I'm there. But knowing that being there for somebody doesn't mean trying to convince them or try to what's the word I'm looking for? Try to control them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Being there for somebody is sometimes that you just need to be a shoulder to cry on or an ear to listen to. I have plenty of examples that I won't even give of in friendships that I have where I don't agree with someone's choice. I don't agree with what they're doing or maybe who they're dating or something. And I used to get so angry, like, why aren't you listening? Or why aren't you taking better care of yourself? I can only offer what I have, and people can take from that what they will. And the more, it sounds crazy, but the more I focused on my happiness and my self-love, the kinder and better friend I became. And people started
That
to notice.
sounds like it makes perfect sense, actually.
People were like, wait, you're so much nicer this year and you're so much more giving and kind and like all these things. I was about to say humble as I talk about all these great things about
That's
myself.
so gorgeous too.
Humble. And I was like, it's because I started to focus on myself and my needs and my wants. And I stopped
Right.
focusing on what other people needed and wanted from me.
Well, it just goes back to thinking of where you coming from in the first place. If you see, we've talked about just people that are rude for no reason. There's no way that they're happy. There's no way they woke up and, had their pancakes and watched their favorite shows. They likely something happened to make them so angry. So yeah, when you're in a good, positive space, you're going to project that to other people. And it's just a domino effect. And I actually try and do that. Like I just had to call the doctor, and I could tell the woman on the phone was a little snappy and she was irritated. And I wanted to be that way back, but I was like, try and change the energy. So I instead pushed myself to be so nice. And I was like, happy holidays. And it actually kind of worked. Like she wasn't like, oh my God, darling, all of a sudden. But I could tell that her tone just seemed to soften a little bit. And people do react how they're treated. So usually. But my last question for you is, with this world of podcasts and entertainment, and sometimes it can be negative, but the good thing is that we can find a lot of positive resources. So what's something, I know we talked about our books we like to read and things like that. What would you recommend to people that have really helped you?
Yeah. Oh, I have the perfect one. And to your point before, my dad taught me you catch more flies with honey, baby.
Yep.
My whole life,
It's so true.
But the number one book that I read this year and recommend, and it's such a resource and I go back to it all the time, is The Four Agreements. If you haven't heard of this book, it's amazing. And I don't want to give it away, but I will tell you the Four Agreements really quickly because they changed my life. They are a daily practice and they are something that is crucial to being a happy person. The first is your word is impeccable. So everything that comes out of your mouth needs to be honest, genuine, and true. Don't
I'm
spread
gonna write
lies
these.
and poison. Yeah, write them down or go buy the book. It's really awesome. Number two is don't take things personally. So like you said, whatever that woman was going through on the phone or that grumpy guy at the grocery store is going through has nothing to do with you. Number three is don't assume. Never assume you understand or know someone else's thoughts or feelings. And don't assume, again, that everything has to do with you. And number four is just try your best. At the end of the day, just try your best. And that is all you can do as a human being. So read that.
I absolutely love that.
Read that book. It will change your life. I'm reading his second book now called The Mastery of Love because I'm trying to figure out some love life for me. Single since forever. But
in the club.
But yeah, that book's amazing and it's such a great resource. So I recommend that.
Speaking of amazing, you are incredibly amazing, and I really appreciate your friendship and your energy. And I think anyone listening to this can just tell what a kind person, great heart you have. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. I loved having you. And of course, I will link your social media for everyone to check you out. We wish you the best, and I will, of course, talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.